joining us on the program today is Daniel Winter-Bates from Bury Tomorrow. New album, The Seventh Son, is available everywhere right now. And you guys are actually going to be in the US pretty quick. I think by the time people hear this, these dates will have already passed, but you're doing a short run with Cane Hill early this September, and then playing Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and then heading back to the UK and supporting While She Sleeps at Alexandra Palace right at the end of the month.
Yeah, that's about right. Yes.
Is that everything? Is there anything else you want to add in? What are we missing?
We've got a headliner in Australia coming up with Kingdom of Giants as well, which is going to be pretty sweet.
Right. That's not. Have you? I'm guessing you've been to Australia a lot more consistently than you have here, right?
Probably not. No, like not collectively anyway. We've only been to Oz once, and that was with Ghost Inside and Ark of the Prom Queen, like 2015. So probably less than we've been to the States.
Oh my God! So they're like even more starved than we are right now.
They are. That's why the tickets are looking good. So
good. That's good to hear.
Probably morbid interest than anything else. Probably.
But you remember that band from like 8 years ago? But we saw them like.
Who the hell are they? I mean, we're surprised to have people from the US that actually know who the hell we are. So it's all good.
All right. So that brings me to my first question. Why are you obsessed with us as in America?
I thought you just meant you two, and I was going to be like, no. I've got a whole plethora of answers for that.
Okay, so, no, wait, no. Go back.
I'll leave you hanging now. No, I think for general, like, I mean, we've been a band. It's no secret, right? We've been a band for a long, long time. But 2006 was where we first started kind of doing like the kind of garage band style of things, and then probably about 2008, 2009 is when we actually started, I would say, being in Bury Tomorrow as it was. And so, like, right from the beginning, we always kind of knew that the States, being one from a geographical perspective, is so large and there's so many different markets that, you know, if you start doing well, and I mean, like, in the loosest sense of doing well in the States, then that is, you know, that's a really lucrative opportunity, but also kind of helps you with your touring cycle, right? And so many bands are from the States or Canada that actually it's also an opportunity to kind of make connections there. So I think for us, it was one of those things, like we were on Artery Foundation for a little while, for the 2010s, which seemed to be like the Artery era of bands. That
was literally their only era. Yeah, like they were just over and done with it.
Maybe it was because of us. Who knows? Downfall of Artery Foundation. But yeah, we had like a good run out there. You know, we did three tours. Our first tour was with Attack, Asking Alexandria, Icy Stars, Breathe Carolina, which was just the lineup of dreams, I suppose, at that time. Probably now you might have a questionable eyebrow raising, but back then that was like,
listen, not at all. I had questions about that tour. Do you remember much of it?
Yeah, I do. I remember, you know, genuinely being really shocked about how big it was. I think, like, for us, we'd never played in front of that many people, let alone consistently for 6.5 weeks. And Attack for us were like, you know, we were first band on. We were an English band that still did side mosh and like turned up with heads and cabs, and we're like, let's go, like let's do this rock and roll style. No backing tracks, no click, nothing. We didn't even have an SPDS pad that was like chomping up.
You're really aging yourself now. No backing tracks.
We were old. But we were on tour with Askin, and we were on tour with Attack and Icy Stars and Breathe Carolina. So we were the odd one out. Attack like took under their wing, like right from the beginning. Like we really got on, and they did things like push doors for us, like an hour and a half, so we could play in front of full shows. They paid for our hotel rooms when we didn't have enough money to be able to kind of rent a hotel room or anything. And like we just got on with them so well, and that was such a blessing, really. In 6.5 weeks of touring, it could have been a lot worse, you know. And so yeah, I remember that tour with real fond memories. I don't remember any bands I was really not getting on with. Like, obviously, Asking are English. Some people might not realize that, but they are.
I think they forget sometimes.
Yeah, they almost try their best to hide it at this point. Like they're ashamed of it or something.
They did it. They milked it for all it was worth, being English.
Exactly. Out of curiosity, how do you feel like the States changed from when you were here in 2015 versus when you came back in 2023? Was there anything like notable?
Yeah, that was back in like 2009. You were on that tour.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, I'm sorry. So yeah, okay. Well, let's be more explicit then. From exactly when the last time you were here versus now.
Yeah, so it was. So the last time we were there was December 2010, which was Miss May I, Crimson Armada, Sleeping with Sirens, and Us, which is a right tour, right? This is this.
It's crazy how many of these bands are still around. By the way, it's actually kind of impressive.
Big these guys are, it's amazing. And Abandon All Ships were on there as well. They're not around anymore.
Yeah, they hung on as long as they could.
But yeah, I think for us, like, has much changed? I think we've changed. I think the political landscape, obviously, has it changed enough? There's the question for the day. But I think it definitely has shifted. There's probably, with how big the states are, probably places that still feel like they might be even earlier than 2010s, and probably haven't changed but prior to that.
Do you still feel the same? Like, does it still feel like a big cultural shift to coming from the UK to the America, or does it feel more similar than it did before?
I think it's still a cultural shift. I think, you grow up when you're not in the States, like all popular culture, right? We were talking about this when we went there. All popular culture is directed towards the States, right? And mainly the big places, LA, San Fran, New York City, like places like that. It's like, and everything you watch from childhood being in the UK to going out to the States like we have done, or being so lucky to go so many times, it's all driven towards that. Every show we watch is either States or Canada. And it's like, okay, well, when you get out there, I don't think you ever lose that kind of awe a little bit of like, this is the States. Like, we went back to New York again, and I've been there like 4 times, and I was still like, this is New York. Like, this me matters, it matters and it means something. And I think so. I don't think you ever lose that kind of wonder. And from a cultural difference perspective, I don't think there's much differences, if I'm honest. Not now. I think it's interesting when the scene first started in regards to like metalcore scene, or certainly when we came onto it, which was like the dying tale of like the golden age of metalcore, and then it petered off a couple of years where we were trying to fight the battle against death metal for a little while, and then it went kind of back up, when we're back into this era where people like melodic and metal music, or whatever, and lots of derivatives either side. And I think for us, like, when we first went out to the States, we were like, that was our era. We were like, right, we're going to go to Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to get like involved in all the metalcore. Like, that's like the mecca of metalcore, right? That or Orange County, and that was it. You were like, here we go, this is metalcore central. And I think there was such a juxta between what American bands were doing in 2010 to what we were doing in the UK, because we still had this era of like Darkest Hour, Killswitch, As I Lay Dying, Unearth. Those kind of bands were like who we grew up listening to. So when we came out and it was like a lot more of the modern metalcore stuff, it was really confusing to us, but we were excited by it. We were like, well, this is clearly where music's going to go. We didn't come out and go, we're already crusty metalers, we're not but like, kind of now I think there's much more of that. So the cultural difference musically, I think, is much more aligned. So the new bands coming up in the UK, yes, they'll probably have a UK feel to them, but they would definitely be influenced, as they probably were back in the day, by
the irony is that it's almost flipped at this point, because you have to think of like a Bring Me the Horizon right now as sort of like the purveyor in terms of like pushing the genre forward. So in that sense, I really don't think America has like a comparable band. We have bands that may be almost as popular, but for a lot of cases, it almost feels like now they're just mimicking things that like the UK scene does really well.
Really hard to say, isn't it? Because I think it did bring me gain a lot of influence from going out to the States, probably at the time of them doing like Warped Tour. I know things like Suicide Season is absolutely heavily influenced by bands like Bury Your Dead and stuff like that. So like, massively, there was none of that like G tuning guitar at the time of Count Your Blessings. And then when we get into Suicide Season, we're getting into that kind of more breakdown stuff. When it comes to like Bring Me Now, I mean, they are the phenomena, right? They're the biggest.
Right. It feels like everyone's chasing That's the Spirit, and they have been for like 8 years at this point.
Say that, and like, I think it's quantity as well. The quantity of bands that are massive in the States, right, is unbelievable. They are, and we're talking astronomical. I mean, you think of the big bands at the moment. I mean, one's from Canada, obviously, who's and you've got bands like
that might have cut out. I'm pretty sure you said Spirit Box.
No, I said the band, the CD behind you, but yes, Spirit Box.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Bad Omens, obviously, who are killing it. And then we've got Sleep Token, which is obviously taking the world by storm slightly. And it's kind of like, but the you've got I Prevails and people like that they just kill it. Like it's like phenomenal level of kill it. And like, I Prevail don't get played in UK mainstream radio. Like, they probably don't get as much press as other bands do here, and yet still are a huge band. And I think that's the thing with the States. It almost lends itself a bit of credibility there, maybe in that sense of, well, they're massive in the States, so it gives them that credibility to come to UK, Europe and still be big, and probably vice versa. If you're really big in a home territory, you're probably going to translate across. UK is one of those things though, we're a small island, so us being big in the UK, it's like, how much does that translate across?
Right. It's like being big in 2 states out here, which kind of like, it takes me back to what you were saying really early on. And I'm kind of curious, do you think that part of what you were saying is that like out here, there's such a huge opportunity to like, if you take off, it could be like exponential, right? Because just like in terms of territory, we're that much bigger. Do you think not being able to tour here for so long sort of like made the opportunity significantly more difficult? Like you would think one begets the other. Like if you were to tour here more, then you would have sort of like gained more traction, but because you weren't, now you still sort of have to like, I don't know, now coming back, if you feel like you're starting from scratch a little bit.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah, we 100% like are starting from scratch. Like, I think we would be probably arrogant to think that we weren't, to be honest with you. Like, you can't go away for 13 years and come back to a place that is as big, one, and also has so many opportunities to see, great bands, amazing bands, from all different types of genres, not just obviously the metal scene. And so, yeah, I think we are starting from scratch. Has it stunted us? Maybe, I would say, it definitely would have lent us more of a chance to probably, consistently tour all the time. But from a lucrative point of view, if we had have reached that level where we were, we were consistently headlining and out in the States, then yeah, obviously it would have been much better for the business itself, for the fan base itself, for our numbers, for all of the kind of sales and stuff. So yeah, I think if people can do it, it's a really, really great opportunity, one, to see a different part of the world, which it changes state by state. That's the amazing thing about states, is that you're like, holy crap, you're in the deep south, and then you go up north and it's slightly different, Midwest, all of that kind of stuff. And I think and that also evolves with I think if people can dive into the musical genres from each of those areas and think about that, even in the metal and rock world, I think it's quite an enlightening experience to hear where all of the different parts come from, which is really cool. But I also think it's really important not to overstate or understate, sorry, how hard it is probably for American bands to get to that level of lucratively touring state to state. This ain't stuff. Me saying it's a great opportunity to do, isn't it? We're very privileged that we can come out and we've got a name enough that people will still book us and say, even things for like Blue Ridge and stuff. And there are bands probably in the States, well, I know for a fact, that will fight tooth and nail. They'll be doing great in their state, or their city, and they'll be doing amazing things, and whenever be given that opportunity, because it's like scratching the surface of a massive thing. And so I think we're quite lucky, because in the UK, we have been a big player for a long time, and we're not the biggest by any means, but we're a big player. And when you're talking about the biggest metal bands, and especially when you derive it down to the biggest metalcore bands in the UK, it's kind of hard for us not to feature somewhere in somebody's thing. And that's not being arrogant. It's just by proxy of being in a very, very small country with a limited amount of bands. When you do that in the States, now you're talking a list that is, 25 pages long. And so
being big in Ohio is not the same as being big in the UK, funny enough. So you'd almost be able to argue that like you have an advantage in that sense, because if you're able to amass a following just where you are, it almost gives, even if you're not playing to as many people, or maybe if the territory is not big, it still almost carries a certain weight to it, where you can say, oh yeah, well, I'm big in a, like, it's almost more than saying I'm big in New York or like I'm big in LA. Saying you're big in the UK, almost like it's a higher level, if just on paper.
Yeah, I mean, and also I suppose yes, I would say yeah. There's two conditions there. One, getting to the States and touring the States is friggin' hard. Like like
Worse now, I'm sure.
it's insane. The money that it costs, like, to come over there is a massive factor of why we didn't come over there. So it's not just because, you know, we fell out with Artery Foundation and whatever. Like, that had an impact for a little bit, but really it's staying as, do we go into financial debt to go out to the States, or do we focus on a place that we can lucratively still make a really good career? And I think that's the second point, is it's not just the UK for us. Whilst Brexit has made it inordinately more hard to tour for younger bands and bands at a smaller level, and even us, you know, it's costing us thousands and thousands more to tour now, but equally it's 3 hours for us to go from the UK to France. You know, if you live on the you know, the southeast coast of the UK, it's half an hour to get from there to France. Then you tour from France, so you drive from France to Belgium, Germany. Then you're big in Europe. Then you've got opportunity to tour Europe, and that is a weight. So if you can tour UK, Europe, then you're talking equal measure to be able to tour the States. That's why so many States bands or Australian bands will come over and they will try and serve those major territories, because, you know, what kind of, the UK is great for us, absolutely is. It's our home, but Germany is 10 times it at the moment.
That's so fascinating. And that just speaks to like the culture there. Like they maybe appreciate that aspect of the scene maybe a little more than the UK does, at least currently.
And I think it's you know, it's not 10 times the size, you know, we're not playing arenas, that'd be great. But it's more like, it's more the fire is there in Germany at the moment. Seen this happen, you know, and it potters around, and it's not to say that the fire isn't in the UK, because there's definitely buzz. But when it comes to our band specifically, it, you know, when we released Black Flame through to Cannibal through to now the Seventh Son, like, that was like, we're a new band. Black Flame may as well have been, you know, obviously we have had older fans since then, but like, Black Flame was another planet when it came to Germany. We went from 200, 300 caps out to selling 1,300, 1,400 caps out on the space of a tour. So it's like, you know, that was our moment really. And then from there now, you know, we're talking like 2,000 caps, 3,000 caps, which is considering where we are in other territories, that's a big deal for us, you know, and it should always be a big deal for people to get to those kind of numbers, for sure.
What's the more underwhelming European country? I'm just curious now, because you mentioned like Germany's a hot spot. I feel like maybe that wasn't always, and suddenly that's the place to go. Where do you avoid now? Maybe not avoid.
Yeah,
but...
where does it suck to play?
Gonna put me in trouble. Where do we do least well, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
Sure.
So it's on us. Let's not say it's on the whole country and cause absolute anarchy.
Sure, it is, but yeah, go ahead.
I would say from a fan base for metalcore, Italy's quite hard. Because it's never really had that metalcore scene to it. I think we've had some great shows in Italy, but we've also had like where it really is just not set up for us to go.
Italy. Was Upon This Dawning from Italy?
I can't remember. I remember there was a band.
So.
I think they might have been. Yeah. I'm just trying to pull like the back of I'm trying to think. Stain the Canvas currently might be from Italy.
But it's like, it's just not got that infrastructure yet, I don't think. They used to have Infest out there, which did okay. And bearing in mind they had like Asking Us, Hollywood Undead stuff played, and it had probably about 1,000 in like a 8,000-9,000 cap at most, and I'm talking being very kind to that festival. So it's not a festival anymore, I don't think. So to go for
that checks out.
The interesting places to play are the Eastern European side and Central Europe, Eastern Europe. That's really like a gamble of like, how crazy is it going to be? So Poland for us is absolutely mad. You might not have like mass numbers, but even if you've got 300 people in a room, it's going to be 300 people going absolutely outrageous. Places like Budapest, Hungary, they're always really, really good, solid numbers. Scandinavia for metalcore is not amazing. Which is interesting because of their heritage in metal.
Right.
It's a little surprising, yeah.
Metal, doom, death metal, even deathcore translates very well out there. So Fit for an Autopsy, we played a show with them the other day in Helsinki Metal Fest, and like our fan base, we had a few people that were into it. We had a lot of people not into it, or just kind of you see Fit for an Autopsy play, and it was like people were into it. Yes, it wasn't probably as crazy as all their other shows, but it was, people were into it. Lorna Shore, like people like that translate very well out.
Is it like in I don't want to say elitist, because elitist I think would then push away bands like Lorna Shore, but they seem very set in the types of things they like.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but then when you listen to it on face value, I think they do listen to the music, and I think that's a difference to what the usual metal elitist is. The minute they see you, they're like, see you later. I think there's some of that out still maybe in certain parts of Scandinavia, but really, if you listen to Lorna Shore, you're into death metal, you're probably going to like Lorna Shore. I mean, and if you don't like Lorna Shore, it's probably because you've seen them online and you're like, oh, I don't like that kind of scene music. But actually, if you listen to them and if you see them, you know, they don't present themselves in a way that I would see people that don't know who they are but love death metal, black metal, stuff like that, not liking them. Fit for an Autopsy they're so bloody heavy and they're so good live that it's kind of like, and Joe is so good at what he does that I think that just naturally transcends. And you know, but it's really interesting, isn't it? Because whilst I know Fit for an Autopsy absolutely are a heavier band than ours, it's we're not a million miles away, and it's quite interesting us to see that there's slight nuances get picked up in different markets. So for us, Germany is so big, and a band like Fit for an Autopsy and us would probably battle for that kind of spot in some of the shows that we've played. And obviously we did in Pericon Fest the other day, direct support to Ghost Inside, and obviously Ghost Inside are phenomenally big. And
that's actually surprising that you say that, because I think of the Ghost Inside as, with all of the troubles and the well-documented troubles that they went through and the amount of time that they weren't able to like tour and play, I'm surprised that people are still as like feverish to see them when they come around.
I think it's that thing, isn't it? Like, one, you know, they make good music. I think, you know, they make music that people, if you enjoy the Ghost Inside, they've never made songs that people don't enjoy. It's easy to go.
Not much experimentation. Yeah, I feel you.
Consistent there, and like, but I think also the story that they've gone through, their experiences, you know, and so they should be playing massive shows. Like for me, if you've paid the ultimate sacrifice in that sense, like, and you know, and people like Andrew can still do what he does, power to him. I'll never say a bad word about them being bigger than they are right now. You know, it's the same as Architects going through what they did with Tom. Like, do what you want. Like, it doesn't make any difference in my eyes anyway. At the end of the day, they deserve everything that they've got. And equally, both of those bands have paid their dues long before they had such poor experience or experienced tragedy. So for me, it's just an easy deflection, really. But I think for Ghost Inside, they put on a good live show, and I think that helps, you know, and I think that carries them. And yeah, and their music is almost now reflecting the experience. Obviously, the songs that they've most recently put out are very much direct callback to that time and where they've gone. So yeah, but they are big, very big.
Yeah, I honestly wonder if it's almost like a deeper connection after what they went through and like then coming back. That makes sense. So to break away from touring for a little bit, this is kind of an open-ended question. The Seventh Son, obviously being your first album with like a new secondary vocalist, and kind of hearing what you said about the way that Black Flame sort of like was a second phase of your career. Did the Seventh Son meet whatever expectation you had for it?
Yeah, I think it did. I think at the time, you know, we weren't going to be a band anymore. So like when you were setting expectations.
Wait, how close are we talking about not being a band anymore? Are we talking like one text chain away from it just being over?
Yeah, definitely. Like,
is this like immediately following Jason leaving, and then there was a lot of time to sort of discuss it afterwards? Or
I would say before that announcement went out. I would say, so putting it out there, like, our culture in our band was really poor when we did, and it's well documented. We've spoken about this quite a bit in Cannibal era, and long before, you know, there was just behaviors and how we interacted with each other and moral and ethical standpoints that just were out of kilter in our band massively, and it just made the whole thing not very fun at all. And I've said for a long time, if this ain't fun, why am I doing it? I'm not doing this for any other reason other than I enjoy doing it. You know, I've got another whole raft of other things that I have to do, and I believe gives me purpose in life other than being in a band. And I think for me, it got so bad when we were recording Cannibal that then the pandemic kind of, everyone goes, oh, the pandemic did it. There's loads of stuff online. Oh, pandemic made it happen. It's all the pandemic.
I mean, bigger picture wise, it did it for everybody, right? Because everybody was like sort of left to sit with themselves for a little bit.
Everyone was presented big questions, right? And this is the pandemic. So I work for the National Health Service. So I was in it. I was in it.
You were busy,
Right.
yeah.
More in it was if I was a clinician, but I was in it, and I was in an acute hospital, working on staff well-being, psychological safety over a time of complete psychological unsafety. And what the main thing I said to most people through the pandemic was like, it presented questions, right? What am I doing in my life? What's important to me? Am I aligned with my friends and my family? What's my career? Am I safe? All of these big questions. And those are questions, right, that you don't even answer in your entire life. They're so big and they're so monstrous that it's really hard to answer. And we were all presented with those same questions, but asked to answer them in a year, 2 years, 3 years. And so when we were presented with this, loads of people go, pandemic is the reason. There was so much pressure and it caused the guys to fall out. That's not the case at all. Actually, it presented a space and time to be able to make decisions or have the conversations that we wouldn't have been able to do in an excessive touring cycle, right? So we were back in and we were like, every time an album comes around, it'll be better this time, it'll be better this time, it'll be better this time. And it wasn't better. And I think being able
Better
to,
in what capacity? You're talking about better in terms of like your relationship with each other?
yeah, 1000%. And equally, this is my own opinion, and some people will have their own opinions on it. I feel it's reflective in how much we push forward our music. Like, I feel like it was like, oh, it's Bury Tomorrow, but it might be the best Bury Tomorrow at that time, but it's the best Bury Tomorrow. It's not the best metalcore band, or it's not the best metal band. And I think when we were presented with an opportunity where Jace has left the band, and we were like, do we do this anymore? Is this something we want to do? Do we carry on with the Bury Tomorrow name? Do we do something differently? I mean, me and Dorse, our guitarists, were always going to do something else. We already started talking about what we were going to do. It's probably going to be brutally heavy. That was kind of we were like, let's go, let's try and do, you know, and we grew up on bands like Bury Your Dead and stuff like that. We were like, this might, and then Kubla Khan came out and we were like, well, we can't do that then, can we? No.
There could be more than one. We could have had two.
There's only one of them. And
they're Kubla Khan, Texas. You could have literally been Kubla Khan, UK.
Okay, yeah.
And nobody else can do it. Yeah. So when this happened, we were talking about this, and then we were like, you know what? Like, and we had all of our team around us, and they gathered around us and said, like, what are you doing, guys? Like, it's not this. Your band is much bigger than the sum of its parts, right? Your band is Bury Tomorrow, and you've dedicated your entire lives to this. At least try and see what you can do without going, let's just axe it. So we were like, right, okay, and we did Death and Life. And we knew at that point, we knew that we wanted to bring in friends. So Dorse grew up with Tom. So they've known each other their entire lives, which I was like, bloody hell, here we go. He's going to put from up north. And he's like, yeah, I've got a mate that can sing. And I was like, oh, and down. Terrible at singing. And then Ed, we've known, was in Heart in Hand. I obviously guested on Heart in Hand's album, Broken Light. Broken Lights was a song. So we've known Ed touring wise, and he lives in Bournemouth, which is literally like half an hour down the road from me. And I grew up with all of Ed's mates, which is really cool because then we knew that we naturally had this connection. So when they came in, it was really easy. It was like already like, no, we don't want you to be sessions. We want you to be in the band. And if we're going to continue, we're going to continue as a 6-piece. And then we did Life and Death. I remember being in the studio like, here we go then. We released this is it. This is the moment of truth, because we were actually recording the album when we released Death. We were all in the studio together, toasted some champagne, and we're like, here we go, let's do it. And we did it, and it just unified everything. Death is one of our biggest songs now to date. It is a monster of a track. And then when it came to like Seventh Son, we were just like, it felt so comfortable because we were like, what we're in now. We've tested the water with these 2 songs, Death and Life. Life is also a staple of our sets now. Yeah, and then we released Abandon Us, and all hell broke loose because but again, reflecting back to, like, you know, what is it, just the culture and the relationships in the band that were the thing that were feeling stagnated and feeling strayed? I don't think so. I think the writing in the band also is reflective of that. Whether people think we've progressed massively or not, there is definitely a progression between the last songs on Cannibal and Death. And for us, that is like a conscious decision just to go, you know what, if we want to try it, let's try it. Like, there's no holds barred, and it took us to where it took us. It wasn't us going, we're going to write the best metalcore album you're ever going to hear. No, we went, you know, we were just going to see where our musical taste and our musical interests take us, and that's what the Seventh Son is essentially.
So then from there, do you then think of your next album as, can I push it further? Yeah. Okay. And how far into not doing any of that, but thinking about it are you?
Oh,
Like
we've already recorded demos, and we're already there. So we're pretty close to doing that, and it is all in. So it's all like, how do we make this? How do we take what was good on Seventh Son and make it better? And we're back into that cycle of improvement. Whereas I think Seventh Son and Death and Life were like, let's see what happens then, and if people like it, then we'll do another one. And I think that was really nice to be able to do that. So when one of your first questions, like, what's the pressure? What was that like? There was no pressure. There's no expectation. It was, you're either a band or you're not a band. So the minute you pass that, it's like, well, whatever happens, happens. When we've always written for fans, like, we've never been self-indulgent in a way of being like, well, we don't care what people think. It's like, well, of course we care what people think, because we're releasing music. Of course I'm up at night worried about it. Of course I'm, you know, on the day we're releasing it, scrolling through things and be like, do people like it? Music for myself, I wrote music for other people. That's just what we've always done. And so
it's so funny you say that, because there's something I always remember is when Jason left the band and I commented how heartbroken I was. You were almost there immediately to like tell me to like just like hold on, like don't give up. And it was like the snap of a finger, like you were awaiting this exact type of response, which is reasonable, right?
And I see everything. People think no, I think for me it was more like, with all things, I think you should always root for something positive in life, right? Like, and I'm always about this. Like, you should always, if you're looking like it's going to be the worst case scenario, it's always going to be the worst case scenario, or it's going to be close. And I think for me, it's like, I have dedicated everything to being in BT. I've perfected and continue to worry about my voice and how, you know, much I want to progress it and make it better and better and better and better. And that is what I've done since day dot. Doris has always cared about how he writes and how he makes it more intricate and more thought-provoking. Jacko and Dav have always held up that rhythm section, making sure to keep us on track when it comes to being catchy and it feeling repetitive. So none of that's changed. And so for me, when people were kind of like, oh God, it's over, I was like, one, you know, and not
by
just,
exact words, sorry.
You know, for me, it's like, one, don't be so dramatic, you know. It's music, right? And any band could write an absolute shitter of an album, or they could write the next banger that's going to take them stratospheric. That is the world we live in now. People release singles and they become the biggest band in the scene. And I think for me, it's more about just having faith that, you know, there's some good writers out there in our band and lots of other bands, and there's always that opportunity, there's always that chance that people will surprise you. And I think with the new music that we're writing, not trying to big it up or whatever, but it's about us trying to get that, you know, that's now, we're chasing this, we're going, okay, don't write us out. And I think there's a newfound confidence in that. You know, when we released Abandon Us, it shocked people into high hell because of what it's like. You know, it's more of a deathcore track than it is probably a metalcore track. Yes, it's got some melody in it, but then we released things like Bolt Cutter, which are also a little bit, they're trying to just test the water a little bit with different things. And obviously songs like Majesty are precursors to us going, okay, we can release a song that is 95% singing with a big old breakdown at the end. Oh great, everyone loved it. Okay, cool, let's maybe do that again in the future, you know. So I think
sounds so freeing, because it sounds like you were in such a prison of what you had built around yourself, and now you can actually do things and like experiment a little bit in a way that's like, I always say it's nice when bands talk about sort of their thought process, because it helps put a lot of this stuff in perspective where we're otherwise sort of forced to just sit there and like speculate for so much of it. So it is nice to hear like this experience is much better. Is the turnaround from Seventh Son to you writing again faster than normal, or is that generally the same cycle you're always on?
To write a lot. So me and Dorse have always been kind of primary songwriters. So I'll always have lyrics and catchlines, and now I've got a set up at home. It means that I can record, and obviously I'm keeping practice up as well, which is the biggest, most important. Obviously, covering bands and doing, you know, vocal covers and stuff is something that I really enjoy doing as well, and just keeping my vocals as where they should be, which means that I'm more excited actually and more keen to get in and do demos quicker because of me being warm now. So I'm staying in a constant state of readiness. So if I suddenly got asked to do a show, it's not like I have to be like, right, okay, like get myself ready for that. I'm like ready to do a show, like ready to record an album, ready to record a single. And I think it's not like bigging myself up. It's just something I realized was a bit of a deficiency of mine, that I'd come home and then I'd wait, and then we'd get ready for tour, and I'd be like, oh, it took me about a week or so to really be in. And I've never really had problems with my voice ever, but I remember being like, oh, by the second week I was like, yeah, that's me at my prime. And it's like, and I think that state of readiness is something that all of us are now doing when it comes to like, right, okay, well, we want a demo, we want the next song, and we want this and we want that, and like, and we've got so many things in the pipeline. I think we have like 13 demos or something that are ready to go. We've got 4 solid songs that we're like, yeah, we'll do that. But we're just toying with now what a release pattern looks like now, because, you know, the people like Spirit Box have changed the game. You know, I noticed Sleep Token kind of started this well, but Spirit Box obviously did it with the EP. People want music, I think, at the moment in time, and they want to consume music as quickly and as intricately as they possibly can. And so it's kind of like, you release a single, it's like, I want another single. And I think that is going to be the state of the world now, and especially we live in a streaming world now, don't we? And I think, yes, there's still worlds for the age-old kind of release a couple of singles and release the album, and everyone's waiting for that album, they unbox it and all of that stuff. There's still that big cult following in that space, but we're definitely in a different era of consumption now, where, you know, you can see Sleep Token go from here to like
right with just a song, right? So it's almost like you're almost playing the lottery in that sense, right? Whereas like, as long as you just keep playing, like sooner or later you could just win.
But a series of calculated singles, that's it. Series of calculated singles with different parts and different shock moments. Like, you know, you look at bands like Lorna Shore. Like, Lorna Shore are a heavy, insanely brutal band. Like, symphonic moments, of course they do, but really, let's be honest, they're a savage band. Shock moments and the capitalizing of how good Will is, as well as obviously Austin is the freakishly ridiculous drummer, and they're all amazing at what they do. But Will's charisma, his ability to do what he does and shock people with his technique, is a major factor as to why Lorna Shore stand above the rest, because he is the best vocalist in the scene. There is no doubt about it. He is the best vocalist, the most technically knowledgeable of anybody else in the scene. He is the number one. And I think capitalizing on those things is really important. I think with a band like us, we've got heritage. We've been a band for a long time. I mean, people tend to go, I know that name. Even if they don't know us, they're like, oh, that's that band, isn't it, that came to America 13 years ago. Or in Australia. Yeah, it's great. But we've also got that kind of ability, because we are so blended, without kind of sacrificing necessarily our integrity as a band. We've never done like an overtly poppy thing. We've never done an overtly dancey thing. We've always done metal core. I think it's like we've got the opportunity now to push the boundaries a little bit further, and I think that's kind of what Seventh Son did for us. We were like, let's try.
Well, I think even before Seventh Son, like we've seen Buried Tomorrow start to get pretty creative, like that collaboration with Modern Air on Death. How did that come about, and were you surprised by the reception to it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, but again, that wouldn't have happened So that wouldn't have happened in the old era of our band. And so it's a classic example of us going, let's try things differently. Let's, reimagined and stuff like that is something that we absolutely are doing, and thinking about things differently, not worried about, we metalcore and everyone's going to freak out because we release. No one cares. Like, no one cares enough. Who cares? Like, you might not like that. Listen to something else. I'm not bothered. Like, at the end of the day, like, you either like our band or you don't like our band. You like what we're experimenting, you don't like us, and that's fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's all good. But things like Modern Era, like, talented band, one incredibly talented band, well, talented few people, ridiculously talented in a number of artistic ways. So video production and conceptual stuff and all of that. And also, not huge. And I think that's really important for us, because we were like, Dav knows them really well and was like, we've got to do something with them. Right, we've got to do it. And Zach, like, doing the video and stuff like that, we were like, we've got to do it. And Zach obviously did Better Below, not Better Below, other album. He also did Begin Again's video as well. And we were like, it's just an aesthetic that is so cool. And I also think it's very English, which is quite interesting. When I see what they do, and same as bands like Static Dress as well, I think Static Dress for me and Modern Era and Loathe and bands like that, I would put them probably in the same kind of world, which is this like very English feeling. Like, I don't know, there's just something,
it's
about
like an aesthetic. You're right. It's like, and they are the quintessential examples. I'll give that to you.
And I think when we decided to do it, we were like, look, what's it going to sound like? We gave like references and stuff like that. We'd had other mixes that had come back from other people. And when Zach did his, we were just like, it's so Nine Inch Nails and has got that vibe to it that he got it straight away. And obviously as a songwriter himself, it was easy for him. He's like, there's the chorus. Instead of like just mashing it up into just kind of electronic song, he was like, well, I'm going to make a song out of it, and add his own vocals as well, and add their own vocals, which I thought was super cool. I love that. And we were just all for it, and long, made that kind of thing continue, because if also from a business perspective, if that can take you into different worlds, and that might be the song, you look, Loathe had a song the other day that Kit's Gehenna or something popped off massively, and really instrumental, basically instrumental symphonic-y kind of song, just popped off. TikTok absolutely took off with it. It like doubled their monthly listeners. It's like, this is the kind of world we're living in right now. And so actually the more avenues that you can take as a band, and that's kind of, I suppose, you say, what's your advice for younger bands? Just do what you want. Don't be constrained by it, and just, if it's a good song or it's a good sound or it's a good tune, just do it, put it out. Why be constrained by a genre? It makes no sense anymore.
So circling back a little bit, just to collaborations real quick, 100% we should expect more of them moving forward.
Yeah, you should definitely expect more
Okay.
reimagined and revisiting songs for sure.
Okay, yeah. When you say reimagine and revisiting songs, further back than the Seventh Son, or strictly just out of curiosity?
Yeah, and that's genuinely more about respect. Like for us, like I will respect, Jace's legacy in this band. I'm not gonna go back and do that and try and make it be like, oh, it's better. No, not at all. Like, absolutely, I'm still very proud of the albums we released prior to Seventh Son. Of course I am. I was part of them, and I've been part of the band since I was 16. So, but I think for me, it's about leaving that where it is, so we can tell people and still maintain that thing of like, look, if you like that stuff, still go back and listen to it, of course. Please, we need the royalties. But
okay, so that makes sense. So, like, all that being said, speaking about being the band since you were 16, literally yesterday for this recording was the 11-year anniversary of when you guys dropped Nightlife. Do you remember anything from recording that music video?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, like what?
Guys, put out something slightly more new. I'm joking. No, yeah, I remember it because I remember being like, because I've seen a comment on it which is hilarious. I saw that today. It made me laugh, about when someone was like, oh my god, another band trying to make metalcore mainstream. I was like, come on, mate. Commentary on drinking too much, and then someone was that, and I was like, yes, mate, you get it. So I just let them fight amongst themselves. I don't get involved. I'm kind of like just a puppeteer in the background. I'll like a comment, might retweet something. But yeah, I think for me, like, that song was really, really influenced. I remember when we wrote that song, really influenced by Texas in July. It's got that kind of rooted in the it's almost the groove of the song. So throughout the whole song, it's still got that da 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 da. Like that is a Texas in July world, right? That was what we loved about them at the time, and I think it's probably still continue to put on those bangers and be like, yeah, listen to this. And I think and they're back now, actually, aren't they?
Yeah,
I was gonna ask if you
literally
were
they just came
excited,
back.
yeah, and I think for me, it's like I remember doing that, and then I remember being like, we just want to do something different for a video. We just want to try it. And if I'm honest, I think back now it's somewhat forced, and I do look back in that video and I do somewhat grimace slightly.
No, stop. It's perfect. It's perfect. It might be a vestige of like a certain time and place, but it's perfect for what it is.
I think for me, I kind of wish, when we released Lionheart off that album, that was like a staple moment of like our band being like, we've been away for a couple of years. If I say a couple of years, that came out in 2011. Our last album 2009. So yeah, a couple of years, and we'd been to America, and then we hadn't toured, and we were like, we're gonna quit. And then we released Lionheart and Royal Blood, and both of those were filmed by Tom Welsh, and have that aesthetic to them where it's like it's the While She Sleeps vibe to them. There was just something about it that was different. Royal Blood, for example, is one of my favorite music videos we've ever done, and we were in it for about 10 seconds, which is probably why. And there was just something about it. I think when we went into nightlife, it was probably trying to push a little bit quickly into that more commercial part of thingy. So maybe the guy's right. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe he was right with his comment today.
No, don't give them, because it'll go to their head and you'll never hear the end of it.
Tell him it was right. Probably was a little bit like too far, I think, for us at the time. But people seem to like it, so maybe we didn't make an error or a judgment. But I can't really watch it.
Honest to God, it might have been the song that got me into you guys. So it's like when it wasn't on the set list, I was a little pissed. I'm not gonna lie.
Ain't gonna be on the set list in a while.
Speaking of when we saw you live, I had the most bizarre experience when we were leaving the venue and I saw you chase people off from the trailer who were probably scoping your like equipment and stuff out like in a sketchy kind of way. Does that happen often?
Was it where did you see us again?
It was Boston, and you ran a couple of guys off, and then you were like standing in front of the trailer.
So I think they were on crack.
Okay, all right.
He'd tried to fight our sound guy, or like steal something off him as he was leaving the venue, and then wouldn't leave the trailer. So every time we leave the trailer to load out, and I was like helping load out because it's a pretty brutal load out there. It was like they kept coming up, and he kept getting in my face. So I was not a happy bunny anyway, because the tour was coming to an end and I was having loads of fun. So he didn't meet me on my kindest day. But yeah, I just kind of lost myself a little bit and kind of told him to leave us alone, and he didn't. And then he kind of gestured to fight me, and then he ran away. So it wasn't really anything, really.
And this doesn't happen often, you're saying?
No, I try and be good. But yeah, it's just generally when stuff like that happens, it just makes me mad, because I'm just like, go away. Like, I know people are hard up, and we would have a chat with people who are hard up, like absolutely. And I wouldn't do that for no reason. But when it's kind of our crew's safety, like, yeah, like that is not something that I take lightly. And so, yeah, but I can't believe you saw that. It's absolutely hilarious. I can't believe
it was a weird, like, out of body experience, because part of me was like, I wonder how often this happens to bands, because it's not like, it's no secret that bands get robbed all the time.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And it's a fairly, it's not certainly that night. It was like it was a bit like, it was active. It was pretty active around. Like, I remember walking to the hotel, I was like, here we go. Like, it's parties going on. And usually when parties are going on, it means there's could be some trouble, drunk people and that, and or you go in the parties and the best parties you've ever been in. So I was like, it's pretty active now. But yeah, I mean, you do hear about it a lot, and there's horror stories, and obviously, in the States, it is more dangerous. There's no doubt about it.
Really? Like than the UK? Is it that different?
1000%. Yes, there's pockets in the UK, but you got guns. Like,
fair, I guess. Fair.
For me, it's definitely more dangerous, I would say. And the UK's got some really pretty tough areas, but like it's not in a different level. And certainly I think the perception that people are given about the States, gun crime and that side of things is much greater. I remember, And half the time it's a load of rubbish. Like, you know, half the time you just walk around and you're like, yeah, I don't know. Or I might be blissfully naive walking through places I absolutely shouldn't be walking through. But it's we did Detroit and I was like, oh, hello. And it was fine. It was like, you know, people were like, don't go that way. I was like, but it's fine. And then yeah, probably the famous last words of Dan will be, I'll go I'll never be seen again.
So right, obviously we have guns here.
All right.
How was it? Was it complicated getting the bulletproof vest through customs?
I thought about this. So I was like, I've actually now, like, we have to, like, on some of the shows that we do, obviously we have to like just take hand luggage because just can't afford to be ostentatious and take all of our hair dryers and stuff like that. Not that we have loads. But I have to like put it in my hand luggage, so it has to go through the scanner. And I would think like, why are they not, but they don't do anything. They don't say. I walked through Heathrow Airport with it on because I was like, well, I can't hold it, so I just put it on.
Maybe they're used to it in a really scary way. Maybe it happens all the time.
I got asked like if people could buy it a couple of times. You know, people that aren't even coming to the show, they're just on the street. Like, it was actually Detroit, not Detroit. It was actually Boston where it was like it. So I was like, I walked from the bus down and then into the back of the venue, and I had like 3 people be like, "Bro, can we buy a shirt?" I was like, "But okay, much actually, because everything has a price." So
hold on, fans or just like people who happen to be in the neighborhood?
Yeah, absolute random people, which was pretty cool actually. So maybe I'm going to side hustle of getting, I don't know, really cheap stab vests and painting them and then just selling them. Maybe that's my new career in life.
Yeah, let me get a 7th Son bulletproof vest. That actually sounds like a pretty lucrative merch idea.
You must be coming to Blue Ridge. Of course.
I'm not. So funny enough, it is unfortunately like the worst weekend imaginable for us, where we have like shows on like either side of it up here.
Blue Ridge. You know this.
Listen, I know, Dan. I know.
It's the funny part is it is on us. So as these tours got announced, we just bought tickets. So Bad Omens are coming to town, Sleep Token coming to town,
Electric Callboy,
right? And then we didn't realize they would just all be at Blue Ridge, and we could have just bought tickets to that festival.
Funny enough, Blue Ridge was kind enough to invite us too, and I've told them now twice that I'll be there next year. So next year, obviously, you're gonna have to come back. I will be there.
Well, I won't be. So yeah, it's
you just won't be, like, just because.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I already saw you this year, so fucking whatever.
This is why we don't come to the States.
We really do take it for granted. And you were talking about being like, oh yeah, this place is only 45 minutes across like London. And I'm like, a 45-minute drive? You should hear me bitch driving an hour to Boston. It's incredible.
My God. Yeah, I mean, most people in America, they were like, oh yeah, it's like down the road. I'm like, oh cool. How far? They're like, yeah, I've driven like 7.5 hours. I'm like, you're out of your mind.
No, fuck that.
We're not those people.
8.5 hours you can go from the top of the country to the bottom of the country. Genuinely.
Blue Ridge would be like a 10-hour drive. I'd fly there. Fuck that.
Do it a day. You could drive from Glasgow, well, it's not the top, Aberdeen, down to the UK and back down to the UK. What laugh? Hampton, and all the way back up to Aberdeen in the same day. You can do the length of our country in a whole day. Twice.
Touring there is so easy. Just a couple of questions before we let you go, Dan. Again, the 7th Son is now out everywhere. Buried Tomorrow is going to be at Blue Ridge. This may or may not be out in time for that. Apologies.
Brilliant.
What was that? Sorry.
You enjoyed it.
I'm sure they did. We can say they did.
Smashed it, guys. Absolutely smashed it to bits.
All right, we're each going to ask you one last question. What I want to know is, what's the My Chemical Romance of British food?
Weird. My Chemical Romance of British food.
That's right.
What?
What do you mean, what?
What do you mean? What do I mean? What's in My Chemical Romance?
Wait, hold on. Do you like My Chemical Romance?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
all
what-
right. So then the question applies.
You can't do logic like that. That's
Absolutely,
not
I can.
how. So you know The Sky. Well, tell me your favorite movie. Like, it's like that simply unlinked. Like, what's in My Chemical Romance of US food? Go on, Em.
Oh, that's easy. Pizza.
Brilliant. You just pulled that out of Ed. Pizza. Hamburgers. There you go.
See, that's why I have a podcast, Dan, and you're in a successful metalcore band. We're just different people.
What is the pizza? Yeah. Okay. Great. Smash that. Intricate out. Yeah.
All right, fine. Marcos, your final question.
Better not.
What?
Look a romance of.
Not even. I'm curious. Are you going to add anything else to your? You've got the bulletproof vest. Like, what's the next thing we add?
A tank.
A tank.
So, like, you'd like roll out on stage in a tank?
Romance of tanks.
Uh-huh.
So, what is that? Artillery gun? I don't know what it is. I don't have.
God, you're really hung up on that question. I feel like you could give me an answer if you thought about it for like a second.
No.
You just hate British food?
Have a think. No, I don't eat British food. No.
Well, then this is probably part of the problem.
This probably is part of the problem. This is the interaction I think I've had. What's the My Chemical Romance of British food? Okay, what's the US version of that? Pizza. It's Italian. So
that's literally everyone listening right now just nodded their head in agreement. It was like, he's so right. It is pizza.
Italian. Brilliant. You've absolutely smashed.
No. American pizza is not Italian food. That's like a whole different category.
Yes, I mean, that's fair enough. What's British food? Maybe a roast dinner then. There you go. There's the My Chemical Romance. Roast dinner.
That sounds incredibly boring. I actually don't believe you.
Sorry about the next thing. I don't really know. I like the stab vest though. People have called it the metalcore vest though, which did make me quite sad because I do realise that Winston also wears one. So which I might take up forward, and I might write the metalcore vest on the back of it and see what happens.
Honestly, merch that would probably sell well. You don't even have to do the vest; just put a picture of it on a shirt. That would also do well. Like
those tux, the tux t-shirts.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly.
You'd be a bit zany and be like, I'm going to prom with the tux, and you just wear a t-shirt and everyone goes, you fucking idiot. What are you doing? It's like the people that take acoustic guitars to the park. Stop. Don't want to listen to that. Or whistling down the street. Stop being a whistler. Stop it.
What if they were whistling Barry Tomorrow songs?
No one wants to hear that. Go and listen to it.
I love the idea of a guy in the park playing on his acoustic guitar and he's just singing like, Death Ever Colder.
In a stab vest, just sat there, just playing metal. What's the next thing? I'll probably start wearing the vest on my bottom half.
You keep looking behind you. Is your vest like hanging like on a door, like right behind you?
It might be here actually. There you go.
You've blurred out your background, so obviously you have some secrets, but
there it is.
Iconic.
You can't see it, but it smells so bad as well. And I wore it every night in the States, about 30-degree weather or something.
And just to be clear, we're not retiring that, right?
Not for the. I am bringing a new one for Sleeps, so this will be coming to the States for me. So people would have already seen it and thought, "Whoa, look at that metalcore champion wearing his vest on stage! What a legend!" Maybe next time he should bring a tank. That's what they'll. And then from there, you won't see it again. I might sell it. Might sell it for £1,000.
Rest in peace.
All right, I'm hanging at the back of the studio. Dan, you've been absolutely incredible. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite, guys.
Absolutely. Please come back someday.
We will do. Never ask me that question again.
Have a nice one, Dan.